What's up, everybody? Ghost Bros Gaming, Steven here. Today we're going to be going through an ultra budget deck. So you can get the main, extra, and side decks for this deck for under $135. And I think it's actually pretty competitive and pretty fun to play. So today we're going to be talking through the budget version of Lyrilusc. Let's get right into it.
Ghost Bros Gaming.
Alrighty, let's get right into the main deck. So we're running pretty much 3 of every single Lyrilusc main deck monster in existence. So I'll just go real quick through what each one does. So Warbler is your starter. He will special summon himself from the hand and then special summon a Lyrilusc monster from hand or graveyard, non-targeting, which is nice. So if you have a bunch of Lyriluscs in the grave, you can usually get this effect off without getting disrupted by the Ishizu Shufflers, which is great. So we have Cobalt Sparrow. So she will search you a level 1 Wing Beast monster, which is really good. So you can search a DD Crow or an additional Lyrilusc monster. Additionally, when you summon a Wind Xyz monster with her as material, she will give that card targeting protection, which is great. We've got 3 Wagtail. So Wagtail will search a Lyrilusc spell and will automatically attach herself to any Lyrilusc Xyz monster you control as material. So you can summon an Ensemble Robin, and then to give it an additional bounce, you'll just, for free, pop her out of the graveyard as material. We're running 3 Sapphire Swallow. So this is one of your extenders. So you will basically, once you have a Wing Beast on the field, you can special summon this card and a level 1 Wing Beast from your hand. So pretty versatile here as well. If a Wind Xyz monster is special summoned using this card on the field as material, you can add another Lyrilusc monster to it as material. So if you're starting to sense a trend, we are basically trying to stack up a ton of materials onto Lyrilusc monsters to give them a bunch of effects. And our last Lyrilusc monster, we've got 3 Barrel Canary. So this is sort of your final extender. This will target a monster in the graveyard and special summon it, Lyrilusc monster, and it will give a Wind Xyz monster that was summoned using it as material. It will give it 200 attack, and its control cannot switch. So if they try to tactics you, they cannot, which is also pretty nice. So that's it for our Lyrilusc monsters. Next up, we've got a very small Tri-Brigade package. So I'm calling this pure Lyrilusc because we are running only one Nerval and 2 Fractal. So this is an engine that I've tested a bit, and I really, really like it in this deck. Basically what you can do with Fractal is you can pitch any, it basically helps you kind of fix your hand, since a lot of your combos are 2-card combos. If, for example, you draw a Barrel Canary with nothing in the graveyard to use its effect to special summon, but you draw the Fractal, you can send a brown bird or a silver bird to be able to special summon with Barrel Canary, so Fractal has that use. You could also send a Nerval to get another Fractal, which you can then use to cheat out a Tri-Brigade link, which we'll show in the extra deck. Additionally, they have some synergy with our Simorgh, Bird of Beginning. So when this card is in the graveyard, if your opponent doesn't control any spell traps, you can pop it out for free. You are locked into Winged Beast monsters for the rest of the turn, which is a pretty big restriction. But in some cases, this is like the only way to unbrick your hand is to use Fractal to send Simorgh. And it's banished when it leaves the field, but if you overlay it, then it never leaves the field, so then it becomes sort of this like recurring advantage for you. So this engine is really, really versatile in the deck. I really like it. And worth noting that a lot of your Lyrilusc plays, you can also synergize with Nerval, so you could use the Bluebird to special summon the Nerval from your hand as well. So next up, we've got why this deck is even decent in the current format, triple DD Crow. This is super searchable in the deck. You can search it a number of different ways. It will also synergize in terms of being able to be special summoned by a lot of the Lyrilusc effects as well. So yeah, DD Crow is really, really strong in this deck. Obviously, Bestial's better all around, but DD Crow is a budget option, and it is very searchable in this deck. So we play DD Crows instead. We're playing 3 Ash Blossom. She's still a pretty good card since this is the budget version of the deck. I would probably put in Imperms if this was like the competitive build, which I'll probably do a video on eventually. But for the budget version, Ash is a little bit cheaper and is still relatively impactful against a lot of decks. All right, so spells. We have a ton of consistency spells, so draw power and add power, because this deck really relies on having multiple birds in your hand, and you need specific ones in certain situations, and so we need ways to get to those. So first up, we're playing 2 Desires. This card's great in the deck because most of the things we play in the main deck are 3-ofs, so it's very, very rare for you to actually banish all 3 of a copy of anything that you might need. So 2 Desires is our pot card for the deck. We've got 1 for 1. This is pretty self-explanatory. Just lets you get to whatever monster you need. Yeah. We've got triple Bird Call. This is pretty much the reason why the deck is good. This card is awesome. It really helps you either get started or extend and sort of bypass that Warbler summoning condition a lot of the time, where basically, if you have them in your hand but you already control a monster, then you can bird call for something else, summon the Warbler, and then summon what you added off the bird call. So it's a really, really good card in the deck. Got to play it at 3. Another consistency card, Where Art Thou? This is not a once per turn, so you can do this 3 times. The only penalty is if you don't normal summon the monster you add, you take 2,000. But hey, I mean, 2,000 life points in today's Yu-Gi-Oh! Not that big of a deal to get to whatever card you need. So I think this card is really, really good in the deck. It definitely helps the consistency of the deck a lot because you can get to any card really from having any card on the field. We're playing 2 Wing Requital. This is Pot of Greed for birds. You just have to control 2 of them with different names. And so you just pay 600, draw 2. I think this is good at 2. Running it at 3, it gets a little cloggy. Like if you draw multiple of this and you don't have a way to get 2 birds on the field, you're pretty much dead. So I think this at 2 is really, really nice because it helps you extend a lot. 1 Bird Sanctuary. So this will give you a draw once you make your Utopic Draco future. Additionally, it will help you, like if you, for example, make a Recital Starling and then make, what's the name of the one that lets you, I don't even know the names of all these birds. If you make a Recital Starling and an Assembled Nightingale, you get the search off the Recital Starling, then you can use the material to give your Assembled Nightingale more attacks per turn and sort of surprise your opponent in that way. So I think this is a pretty good card for the deck. Just some 1-ofs. We've got Duster, just in case we run into back row stuff. We've got Called By, because it's called by. And then Instant Fusion, we are playing the 1 Lyrilusc Fusion, which this card just sometimes helps you get out a bird in order to start making plays that require birds on the field. So that's it for the main deck. Let's get into the extra deck. Alrighty, let's get into the extra deck. We've got the newly at 2 Recital Starling. So I really don't think you need more than 2. I think the deck is super playable with 2. You're searching birds and you are making Utopic Draco future with this card. So you can search DD Crows, search whatever you need. This card is insane in the deck. We've got 2 Assembled Nightingale. This card is awesome. It lets you attack directly up to the number of materials it has, and it gains 200 attack for each material. So not only does this card allow you to go for game over really, really strong opponent boards. So if your opponent has a ton of really big beefy monsters on board, you just summon this, give it like 6 attacks and 1400 attack, and just poke for game 6 times. It's pretty awesome. It also is like your main Zeus play as well. So you're gonna use this, attack a bunch. You could make Zeus with it. Since you can attack directly, you could even summon it with 0 attack and make it into Zeus. So really, really good there. We've got 1 Promenade Thrush. This actually is pretty clutch from time to time. It helps you get rid of like back row that's problematic. So particularly things like Rivalry or Gozin, you can usually get to this card under those cards, then shuffle them away, and then continue your plays into other things like Zeus and stuff like that. So definitely needed for the spell trap removal. We've got 1 Ensemble Robin. This is your turn 1 play. So this is going to be the card that you're making when you're going first. basically, it will give you a non-once per turn. People always double take on that. It will give you a non-once per turn special bounce when your opponent special summons a monster. So they basically have a few options. They can make you use it a couple times, then normal summon, go into battle phase and beat over it. Or they can just like get bounced infinitely. So I think like this card is really one of the main reasons why the deck is so good. You can just keep special summon bouncing. Usually you can get between 3 to 5 materials on this and a Utopic Draco future, and between the two of them, it's a pretty significant amount of disruption. She will also help your grind game. When she gets sent to the graveyard, you can add a Lyrilusc out of your graveyard to your hand. Next up, we got this little bastard. This guy is awesome. Read the top effect, unaffected by other cards' effects. So he's completely unaffected. Once per turn, quick effect, you can detach 2 materials from this card. For the rest of this turn, this card cannot be destroyed by battle, and you take no battle damage from attacks involving this card. This card is kind of crazy. It's here for like emergencies, right? So if you're really down bad and you can just get 2 birds on board, you make this guy and you are basically guaranteed to live another turn. I don't see how someone would out this unless they have like a Kaiju or a Goth Mommy. This card is really, really hard to out, so I like having it in the deck for emergencies. We've got our Utopic Draco Future package. So this is what we usually like to go into early as possible in our plays, because our opponent, if they do have Nibiru, would have to Nibiru before this guy comes on board. And he's really, really easy to make in the deck. Really good card. So yeah, really pretty free in this deck, so might as well play it. Next up, we've got our Zeus package. So we've got the Downer, just in case we want to get an extra material, and we've got our Zeus. So if this wasn't the budget version, I would play 2 Zeus, but Zeus is like $22, so certainly couldn't include 2 Zeus in the budget version. However, this deck really is like Zeus Turbo, so definitely got to play Zeus and Downer. This is like your main board clearing, go second kind of play. Next up, we've got the Fusion Lyrilusc monster. So this is really just here to work with instant fusion, so that, you know, if you just need a bird body on board for whatever reason, you can use this. It also burns your opponent for 500 for free, so it kind of gives you like a little bit of your money back on the instant fusion. You know, you only go minus 500 on net. We've got one Link Karibo. This is really good to make off of your Nerval. So 1 level 1 monster, and then when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you tribute it, change that opponent's monster's attack to 0. So if you can get this and Ensemble Robin on the board, even if they get the Robin's attack down to like 1,000 and try to go into battle phase and beat over it, you just tribute the Link Karibo, make their attack 0, and then they have to deal with the rest of the special summon bounces on your Robin. We've got one Shurig. This is just here as like your turn 2, turn 3 plays where you're going to have a ton of Wing Beasts in the graveyard, and you've got the Fractal and the Nerval, so you might as well use it. It's really nice to be able to just banish some birds, because again, you're going to have a ton, and get a Shurig out for basically free. You won't use this as part of your like mainline combo, but it is really good like in later stages of the game when you're running out of resources. And last up, we've got Goth Mommy. She's in here because you are going to have a lot of monsters on board. Like this deck almost reminds me of Sprites in the way that it just like craps out really small monsters onto the board. So just here for some removal in the event that you run into something really crazy. All right, lastly, let's get into the side deck. We are running 3 Harpy's Featherstorm. This is one of the more expensive cards in our budget build. I think these are like $6 or $7. But this card, if you side it in when you know you're going first and you flip this, it is literally a turn skip. Like, so I feel like you have to play it. Like, it's just so good to be able to flip this on your opponent. So next up, we've got Nibiru. So basically, you're also running Shifters. So that's next up. So that sort of takes care of your tier matchup in some sense. So that means that everything else we kind of want to have something for non-tier. So Nibiru is really good into a lot of rogue matchups. So if you notice your opponent doesn't have a Nib out in their combo, you side this in and you just absolutely wreck them with it. Nibiru against decks that are vulnerable to it is insane. So you got to play it. Next up, as I mentioned, we're running 3 Shifter. I would really only play this against like Tyr, Naturia, etc. Your deck, like Lyrilusc runs reasonably under Shifter. Like it's definitely not great, right? So that's why I'm not main decking it. But it does run well enough under Shifter that it is worth siding in going second against things like Tyr and Naturia. Next up, Board Breaker, we've got Dark Ruler. So since we are Zeus Turbo, Zeus is just a really, really good option for clearing boards. And if you combine that with a Dark Ruler, you turn your opponent's effects off for the turn. You then proceed to make a Zeus and just wipe the board with Zeus. It's really pretty solid going second to be able to just clear their whole field that way. And last up, you gotta have your time card, Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. Other people are running time cards. You should also run time cards. So anyway, that's it for the deck profile. Hope y'all enjoy. Let me know in the comments if there's things you would change. And thanks for watching.